Hey, welcome all. Fine Line Fridays. Taking that moment to really work on the business, not so much in the business. Will Riley, I have a guest today, Kerrick Willis, who we're going to kind of talk and have some good dialogue around drones and what it means to the roofing industry. But Kerrick, why don't you give a quick introduction? Who are you and how did we even meet, man?
My name's Kerrick Willis. I met Will probably, year and a half, coming up on two, yeah, about a year and a half ago. We started really getting deeper about a year ago, and we started to integrate some stuff with GSI, which is the company I created and founded. GSI is a drone photogrammetry company, but at its core, we're just trying to help others in terms of building their drone companies, capturing data, hosting the data, anything like that that involves kind of drones in that whole space. Getting into the commercial roofing industry is kind of where I've started. I've spent my whole life here. I've got about 10 years overall in roofing, essentially a second generation roofer. Spent a lot of time in the fields, put on some roofs, things like that. So I feel like I bring a little bit of a different perspective to the game. And it's personal for me. And I really think that there's a lot of value in just teaching actual roofers and people how to fly these drones because it's not that difficult at the end of the day. It's just another tool.
I love that because you bridge that gap from the actual technical knowledge of roofing and then also the software side. And I'll tell you, from early on, I've always had a desire to try to bring the drone side of things to the, I guess, call it CRM side or front end functionality side of a roofing business. And the biggest struggle that I always had was, well, how do we do that? Because if you fly a drone over a building, the file size that you have is so large, right? And when I started talking with other entities, other people that were flying these drones and getting this video, I was asking like, what do they do with it? And you store it, and you might process it, you might convert it, but then why are we doing it, right? Is it for marketing? Is it for other reasons? Is it for estimating? So when I encountered what you were doing, I was so impressed because it was something after the building was flown. It was something not so much after, but the result you could touch and use and benefit from. And we don't have any visuals here today, but we can unpack that and what that means. So I found that really interesting, and I'm happy you bridged that gap between flying a building, having that processed, and then having it be a 3D interaction experience that contractors can use from. Maybe you could talk a little bit about like, all right, so you get this model. What are all the things that you could even do with this model once you get it?
Well, I mean, you can go so far with it, and just to take a quick step back. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just data. It's what your company's founded on. That's what most companies nowadays and stuff. We're out there just collecting so much data, and the intention is just to kind of simplify, where we're using that data and how we're using it, and then the different places within the companies that we can use it. The 3D side of things, it's really as far as you can imagine. There's not really any part of the business we can't use this in. Starting up front, a lot of people start or get into it, and more of my specialty is in the takeoff side. So pre-production, going out, doing core cuts, and finding, looking at a roof, taking all the pictures and images, and then we're able to bring all that data back. And really, what that allowed me to do as a takeoff person, and it just really simplified the overall need of, hey, I'm here to capture all this data, or I'm here to only try to figure out how I can capture the data in a way that way the office or my estimator understands what's going on. But instead, now I can say, hey, my drone's going to capture 90% of the data of the visual information I need. So I can really spend my time and effort on what's going on in this roof, what's up here, how's it installed, what problems are we going to run into. So I get to focus on real roofing, not trying to collect data or worrying about the technology or this thing or the other, because it really is so simple to just kind of fly the drone around. Most of the stuff's pre-programmed and simplified, but overall, the 3D can be used anywhere from sales. If you have a customer and you want to impress them, and let's say you're doing a pre-con meeting or something like that, and we could go into that pre-con meeting and say, hey, there's an issue along this expansion joint up here that you guys didn't notice or notify. Pull the 3D model up in the building, and we can be off-site somewhere. So really, we could go in 100 different directions with it. I guess my question to you would be, where's your biggest benefit that you see for the 3D stuff?
I'm in that position where I feel like I'm in the center. I'm a solutions provider, and I work with contractors, and I'm examining kind of the use cases for where the need is, and then
Mhm.
pairing that with the tech side of, okay, how to deliver that. Me personally, I see that the landscape's changed so much, even in the past 10 years. 10 years ago, it was flying, HOAs just to get to areas you can't see. And then looking at it, it was flying for purely like B-roll or marketing. 5 years later, now it's like, all right, we're starting to be able to measure off of this, and we're starting to get a little bit more information that's beneficial. Now it's like the possibilities, like you said, are endless. The client side where you are able to provide your customer with a better experience, where, hey, we're having issues on this building in this specific location. Let's talk about it. Internal resources, external, your customer, and then estimating, so everyone could be on the same page. That would be my biggest push, is connect everybody so we're all speaking the same language. Fair.
Right. Right. And that's my biggest thing. It's what I sorry about that. That's what I truly love is really the ability to connect anyone and anytime. Let's say we have an issue on this roof and my estimator doesn't know what to do. He could walk down the hallway and get a hold of the superintendent and say, "Hey, take a look at this real quick. What do you think we should do here? How do you think we should do this? How do you think we should handle it?" Preventing that error down the road, possibly costing you tens of thousands of dollars or more if they didn't catch or see something. But you're right. At the end of the day, it's data, and I think the NRCA's it's been about a 10 to 20% increase roughly over the years for people wanting aerial measurements, and that's one of the simplest things to do with it. Let's pull in a 3D model and let's get all your measurements of a roof, and it makes it easier. Even post production, you're on the job, you can still get measurements. You have an issue, you need to order something. There's always times and places where you forgot to do something or get something, and that's really where all the 3D stuff comes in. But again, it's data. It's kind of like my idea really with trying to simplify it's just you're bringing the roof to you. You're bringing the roof to your office, to your fingertips. There's no, yes, you always need to go look at it. Yes, you always need to see it. I'll never advocate for not putting boots on a roof. You need to see what's going on. You can't just visually look at it. You need to put your hands on it. You need to feel it. But there's just so much information there in those 3D models that it just simplifies the whole process, just from handoffs to, like you said, sales and working in between with everybody, that it just makes things a lot simpler. Um, it's going to go far. And then the speed that it's changing is kind of scary for me, because as the photogrammetry technology updates and all these other things, how we make those 3D models is, what I'm talking about. It's getting faster. It's getting easier. There's more and more cases where people maybe you just use your cell phone. You can walk around a unit and kind of create a 3D model and scan it that way. So it's, once you start understanding how we can use that 3D in the data, it starts opening up further possibilities of, where else we can do this. And on top of that, we've got location tied into it. So we can do things like, hey, go to this corner of this unit, click on it. We could pull all the GPS location and information and then send someone straight there. There's just so much information at your fingertips at all times that it's kind of limitless, just how far we can go.
Yeah, and you kind of got to figure out what it means to you. And I feel
Mhm.
that in the industry, it's I don't want to say intimidating, but it's almost like, where do I start? I like what you're trying to do, because you're trying to simplify it, because it's complicated. Even
Mhm.
back then, just handling the size of the storage chip and putting it into a computer, and like actually, like that's a challenge in itself. But simplifying it to the extent of, okay, I'm a contractor, I've never done drones before, I want to get into it. It's not like, where do we start? It's not like,
Mhm.
all right, I'm going to bring this marketing, whoever does my marketing over, and then have them get the certification and go start flying. There should be some kind of plan. But in your experience, where do you see people try to start?
Well, I do think marketing is one of the easiest places, in the essence that you've got someone that's a little better with technology, a little more used to computers, a little more used to data types and things like that, because I do forget sometimes how many years I've been doing this and all the small nuances that go into simple things like file types and how big it is and can we edit it, and how should the camera be settings for this. And I've simplified all that for people, But I do think either marketing would probably be a good step in. Otherwise, I really think you get you a takeoff person,
Mm.
someone, because a lot of people struggle to get estimators, and that's where I think the biggest benefit is someone goes out, they do a takeoff, they look at a roof, and then they fly it. I would love to see where we get to foreman doing it or superintendents having it. Weekly progress was something that was phenomenal to be able to do. Someone's already doing a job. Just this is another tool to give them. It's no different than handing them a cell phone. You just have to put in maybe 2 weeks to a month's worth of work. I think you give someone 30 to 40 hours and they're not going to have an issue. It's an hour or two a day for a month and they can get their license. And then you've got someone that can legally fly and capture imagery and, all of that on a weekly stuff from are they putting up their cones? Are they putting up their safety on the production jobs? Is stuff done right? Where did you park that lift? Where did you park your material? Put your materials. Are they keeping things cleaned up? And you're not having to go and dig all this information out of your superintendent or something. You can quickly pull a photo up, look at it, go through it, and go on to the next one. So you're simplifying even your leaders and your managers' time and basically giving yourself more time to actually roof and figure out the big problems and not worrying about managing the job or getting it ready.
Makes perfect sense. And for contractors that are starting to put these efforts in place, the difference between now and back then, and I say back then, I mean 10 years ago plus when drones first started entering in this world, you had
Mm-hmm.
people flying it and it's changing elevations and the video quality wasn't as great and like what you could do with it was far less.
Right.
As time goes on, technology improves, price reduces. If
Mm-hmm.
I were to start an initiative, um, maybe can you kind of ballpark comment on what funds would go into it if done correctly? And I wanted to be a contractor that's doing it myself. What I expect to invest in just like one drone initiative?
Um, Overall, I mean, it's really it's going to depend. And are you doing someone in house? So I would say if you do someone in house and you take their time, let's say it takes them 30 hours, let's do roughly $50 an hour. You're at about $1,500. The course, you're at about another 150, and then the drone there. So let's say you're at $2,000 to get someone certified because they also have to go pay 150 when they go take the test. So $2,000 to get someone certified, and then you buy a drone. So the drone that's where the biggest variation could be. And I would caution a lot of people if you're ever asked to spend more than $5,000, really take a second look because for 9 out of 10 companies, that's going to be way too much drone. And I know a lot of people out there that buy these 10, 20, $30,000 setups because it's got thermal or it's got this. There's thermal drones out there that are $4,500 with a full kit with batteries, hard case, all that. You might be closer to 6,000. But if you just wanted to get in low level one marketing, we can get you a drone for 1,500 bucks, and so you're at 3,500 overall. We can get you photos, videos, and get you not us. You can get started in it. And that's kind of low ball. And then I would say 10,000 is a fair point for if you want to get into more of the 3D stuff and kind of go at it on your own. Um, but learning, that's the hardest part is learning, what drone to use, what setup to use, the distances to fly, and all that information. And that's really what takes the most time, I would say. Do you want to do this in 2 months? Do you want to do this in 3, 4? Do you want to do it in 6? Do you want to do it in a year? Because if you're going at it alone, that's going to be the biggest difference of do you want to get to do you want to get to the starting line or, do you want to get to the finish line? Because it is a lot without hiring out. And, you could do that. That's another approach I could recommend would be find you a drone pilot. I guarantee there's tons of people out there that would love to work for you for 50 something $1,000 a year that already have their pilot's license. And they could be, maybe that marketing person, maybe they could help with all these other things because they might be a little techie and stuff like that. So it's also pulling other resources and other types of people into your company that can kind of help you broaden your horizons for tech or other solutions that they may pay off tenfold and then you're not training somebody. But my hope long term is that eventually enough people get a drone license that it can kind of be a standard. Like, hey, we need someone for a takeoff, or hey, we need this. Part of the requirement is you need to have your Part 107. And then that would also encourage other people to maybe go get it on their own. And I've seen that as well. Hey, we'll give you, $250 to the first person who can get, their drone license. I've seen people take that route, and then people do it in their spare time, and they get their drone license, and then now you have a drone pilot. So there is a few different ways to approach it. But I like the idea of taking a roofer, because that's where I think you're going to get the most benefit. Taking someone who's a little tech savvy on, doing something like a competition, $500 something, and saying, hey guys, somebody out there at the company, get a drone license. You can essentially, it could possibly take you out of the field. Maybe you're a field guy out there just getting crushed in production and you don't know how to get out. This could be a chance for you to get out of production and maybe go do takeoffs, or go getting, to another side of the business that can really advance somebody's career as well. So it's a huge benefit, not only for the company, but also for the person that's involved, just allowing them to take their skills further.
I love that. And that's a unique way of looking at it, but it's the reality too, especially as this grows, the uses grow, that there's more opportunities. I absolutely love that. So the use cases for getting started would be through a marketing lens. What, $6,000-7,000 just to get started, have some resources doing it. The other is going to be takeoff measuring, right? The other is going to be more of I'll call it project management, where
Mhm.
ongoing project communication with the crew. You commented a while ago to me on a specific use case that stands in my head, where you're stuck on a project and you need to make sure your crew leaves and you have to send them back, right? And maybe it's a sub crew and you need to communicate specifically on the roof where the issue is. It's leaking because of whatever issue, to send another resource out who may have never even been out there before too. Could have been that case. So project management would be a good lens. And then the third category I have is client management. I think
Mhm.
when you asked me earlier on kind of what my interests were, I think that's kind of a long-term interest that I have. I see it evolving in that direction, where
Mhm.
all of this building history, from who has looked at it, to who has identified issues, to who's serviced it, to who's fixed what project wise, and to be able to capture all of that on a living 3D model, I think that would be totally awesome. But I don't know how it works where you refly the same building again. I don't know what happens there.
Yeah, and there's different ways we can go about it. But my thing is we don't even always need the 3D. Sometimes, a lot of cases, because of the time, you can fly 2D stuff faster. We can sometimes
Mm.
fly a little higher, and get things done quicker. To where maybe we've got a service tech who does an annual inspection. I mean, it might be 5 minutes on a lot of buildings, so it's really not a huge difference. The big difference comes in processing the data and hosting it. The 3D stuff gets much, much larger compared to the 2D. But it's where I would love to see someone take and do, and it's called an ortho, to where in this ortho we could see, you could see drains, we could see all our T patches. I mean, I could pretty much tell you, I could see lightning protection, all that. So it's good enough, I feel like, to where if I watch something over 20 years, I would love to see it either every 6 months or once a year. And then you start adding something for your client for, hey, I'm going to, I'm for $500, maybe you do it for free. I'm going to throw in a drone flight, and they might be willing to pay for something like that because it's a little extra and they feel like they're getting something more. So instead of getting nothing for your preventative maintenance inspection, sometimes you're actually getting a little bit back. And then the more customer data you have, the less likely they're going to want to leave you, because you've got 10 years of their roof and they can access the data. And property managers, they have to do things like count units. They have to understand, are their curbs damaged, is there something going on with their property? So you really become their ally and their partner in data acquisition, and keeping track and managing their property or their building. And you're making everybody's life easier in the process. And in the future, I've worked with companies to where we're building out. So I've worked with a company that's building out a whole CMMS platform to where their entire industrial site operates off a single 3D model. So, and that's how they do all their maintenance, their whole systems and
Mm.
everything. So we're getting to the point where maybe they paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for that system and that build, and you could update it for them because you're able to fly and create that drone data or that 3D data. So there's always opportunities here to really be more of a true partner and not just your roofer. You really become an ally that they really lean on, and they're subject matter experts, and just a multifaceted kind of way.
Absolutely. Yeah, that complements everything that I feel we're all about. Part of where I think we should talk a little bit about is the after, because you mentioned processing, hosting. I know that seems a little overwhelming to perhaps some contractors, but after you fly it, right, you've figured out a way to pass that data packaged correctly. I'm sure you do certain things to it, but you package that data correctly, you pass it off, and it gets rendered somehow, and then it gets sent back to you somehow. Maybe you could dumb that part down, or even for me too, because like all I know is it's magic sauce. You fly a building, and then you get a link, and you can click
Yeah.
that link, and you can look at it.
Well, it's pretty simple in my head. Overall, it's we take a drone. Really, we're doing a process that's called photogrammetry, and it's the art slash science of creating 2D and 3D images, or 3D and 3D models from images. If we have scales and GPS, we can measure it. But essentially, we take a drone, we fly a predetermined flight path. There's a lot of softwares out there. It's pretty simple. You push some buttons, click some other buttons, follow a little checklist. The drone goes up, it buzzes around, takes a bunch of pictures for you. It lands, take the little SD card out, and then you just upload it to me to a website. Basically, you just drag the folder off like you would be, uploading it to your computer. You just drag and drop it into a window. It gets sent to me, and then I run the photogrammetry software and process, turn all that stuff into 2D, 3D models, all the other fun jazz in the background. And then we're going in, and it's another phase that's, I'm glad you brought up, is really heavy, and that's one of the hardest parts to do, is to actually host and utilize the data in a usable and efficient manner, because even most of the time to do or utilize the things that I'm working with, 5 years ago, we were looking at you needed a $3,000 to $4,000 workstation. Now we're getting so much stuff on the cloud with enough capabilities that you can do it from your cell phone. Anybody can access it with a link. So you take that 2D, 3D data, and we put it into a site to where we can host and share it and manipulate it. Everybody can have access to it. And it just simplifies the process to where now at the end, all you're doing is what you know how to do, which we've all used Google Earth. We've used measured in 2D, 3D. I ask people, can you click a button and, draw a line, click another button? That's really all it is. We have to learn a few more buttons about how to move around, and that can be disorienting. That's why a lot of times I like people to start in the 2D space, because we take that view. A lot of people do takeoffs, or they're looking at roof maps. All we're doing is getting a really high resolution version. Just kind of put it that way. And then it's just accurate because of the process. So it lacks perspective error. So it's just a flat 2D image that's really clean, and then you can draw off that. And if we can scale it in any software, once it's been downsampled to a smaller file size, because it's about average 1 to 2 gigs, fresh, and that's where the process of downsampling it, so that way you can use it in, Centerpoint or whatever software it is. If you want to pull it in the edge, you can pull it in the edge. It really doesn't matter overall. The intention is to bring the data to the teams and the roofer in a very simple way that they already know how to use. So I'm not trying to complicate it. I'm trying to take all the complex stuff out because I've already figured all that out. I just want people to roof. Just go fly the drones, send me the models. I'll send you the data back. Then you're measuring, sharing, doing what you need to. We've got annotations, all that stuff on it, but it's a pretty simple process of fly, upload, and then measure, or click on the model for annotations and stuff. There's little features within it that we can get deeper, and there's other things we can do to where we can make it a little more complex. But overall, the idea is you just bring the roof to you, and it's in a good view. You can see it, you can look at things, and you can measure things. And that overall just simplifies a lot of things. It takes a lot of time, expensive and tedious tasks.
Well, I love how you're making it sound so easy, because you've taken the challenging part out of the equation. You know, my comments earlier about, all right, I'm flying this building and now I have this like really large file. What do I do with it? You know, you could play it in a movie, you could look at it, and that's what we had back then. But
Hmm.
now being able to just drag and drop and like send that off for processing, that's the
Hmm.
magic, right? And when you get that link back, whether you want to host it yourself or you just want to have it done for you, there's options like that. And that's why I think that we align so well, or one of the reasons at least. But when I get that link back and I'm able to on my phone tap it
Hmm.
and like interact with it, I could be on an iPhone 7, right? It's the
Hmm.
same technology or similar technology to video game streaming services where, you know, you get your kids in the back seat and they're like playing Fortnite on their
Hmm.
phone, you know,
Yep.
and they've incorporated that into this world, and just think it's so cool. And if you looked at all of them too, how
Hmm.
how is how do you rate the different services out there that are able to just process data?
I mean, and that's the hard part. You've got some guys out there that are really good at marketing and stuff like that. I'm not gonna lie. I try to be as competitive as I can. There's services out there where you could get more data processed, but what I go for is the quality overall, and I've got one of the highest in terms of software out there that can create the models that I do. It's of the highest quality out there, and then I have to find a separate service that is doing. They're doing exactly what you're saying because they are all video game designers. That's what they did in their past life. They built video games, and then that's why this service kind of came about, and to where I can utilize it and build out essentially the rest of the platform. So that way you can operate and utilize it in a very simple and efficient manner. Um, I mean, overall,
Mm.
it's you know what I mean. It's I guess designed to be kind of simple. Kind of lost my
It's gotta
train of
be.
thought there and exactly where the question was going, but
It's
no, I
gotta be
mean
simple. It
it
has to be
is. Oh,
simple, or people won't use it, right? And they'll
right.
get intimidated by it.
And the biggest, there we go, of why did I choose this one? So my biggest one, and I've got a few other ones. There's plenty of software out there. There's a few that will directly market your customer. So as soon as you send that link and they want you to sign up or something else, they would just start hammering them with emails like, hey, by the way, use our drone services. Hey, by the way, do this. Hey, by the way, do this. So you got something that I feel like is a bad business practice. So I stay away from them. But the main thing is just the simplicity. I can integrate it into other systems, and you're not trying to re-input all your data, redo this, redo this, redo this. It's just a 2D or 3D model. It's designed in a way that it's the system's meant to be built upon. It's not meant, you know what I mean? It's meant to be a la carte. And that's really how I like to build things so that way we can pick and choose. I want everything to integrate and fit together. And that's part of the overall intent of my company, GSI, Geospatial Integrations. I care more about getting people to a single system or a functional service instead of going through 17 different systems and services and jumping around all the time. I just want to make things simpler. And that's really my overall goal with the reason of why I've chose this platform and the direction I'm going. Because there are other options. There are ways to do it cheaper and things like that. But again, that's not what I'm going for. And at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, do you want quality and do you want something that works well? Or do you want something that you can go in there, they're going to sell you something and it's kind of like getting Microsoft Word. No one teaches you anything about Microsoft Word. No one shows you anything. And they're definitely not specialized in your service or your industry. And that's where I feel like I separate myself is I can tell you how to fly it. I can tell you why to fly it this way. And the flight plans I built are designed around, I think I had someone fly a 4,500 square building recently, and it took 36 or 37 minutes. That's massive. And if you can imagine how long it would take you to measure even part of that building, you're way over that. So the amount of data and how fast you can acquire is what's really important. We don't want to be there for hours. We don't want to take a drone up and capture every single nitty gritty detail. We need to be at a place where we're efficient and fast, but it's also affordable. It's reasonable. It makes sense for everybody involved because otherwise you're just not going to use it. Because like you said, I've met plenty of people that, hey, I've got the video and photos. What do I do now? Hey, I've got a 3D model or I've got some 2D stuff. What am I supposed to do with it? And it's just crazy to me. There's so many places of, let's roof maps, for roof plans, overview images for proposals. Just kick the drone up, nice pretty picture. It looks, just a few seconds. It's beautiful. And you don't have to know how to use all these softwares and Photoshop and all this stuff. Like Lightroom, you can, or some of the Adobe ones, just go in there. I just tell people to click auto a lot of times because we're getting to the point where you can throw stuff in there. And unless you need something supremely, done in some specific way, which I could help you with, a lot of, things are, we're getting to good enough, not perfect. And it's just finding, that line of the sand of really being good enough to, well, maybe it's great to some people, but for me, it's just being good enough to be usable consistently and scalably, but not be over the top to where it creates a burden.
It's hard to find that balance too, because a lot of people get
Mm-hmm.
stuck in the details. I experienced this just last week with someone I was working with building a training program, and it was like they were
Mm-hmm.
getting stuck in all the channels. And it's like, no, let's hold on, let's take a step back and let's just lay out the structure and then cut loose, and then we were boom off to
Yeah.
the races. But I think the difference between something that's like, you're talking about quality versus price. The difference there is like, can I measure building height or not? Can I measure,
Mm-hmm.
wall height or not? Like those are the things I think you're commenting on. But I like the additional value, and I always believe in having win-win-win scenarios where everybody
Mm-hmm.
wins. We can't have a loser in this pile, right? So we aligned with what you're bringing to the table, with what Chad's bringing to the table, and I think that there's a lot of good synergies there because it's giving back to the industry, and Dustin, my mentor from the roofing company, always said this. He's like, if you go out there and you just help people, the money part, that'll be automatic. But if you
Mm-hmm.
lead with the money part, the rest of it isn't, you kind of have bad motive. You kind of have, I don't know, I don't align too much with that, but I can't wait to see where it's going to go in the next 5 years from now. So we're at the end. So where
Mm-hmm.
can people find out about what you do? What's your website?
You can go to gsi3d.com and check out a little more. I also have roofinginthreed.com. It gives you another way to look at it. I've got two approaches to this. I broke down to a monthly model to kind of make things simpler. It's a little more go at your own in terms of I'm still here for you for monthly meetings and stuff, but I just don't do the full package, which is the in-person training, spend a week with you and your team, getting everybody up to speed and stuff like that. You can also reach out to me through Will, your team, or you can just email me directly at kwillis@gsi3d.com.
I love it. So this was a good topic. I'm glad we had it. Thanks for coming. I love
No
doing
problem.
these, and we'll keep chipping away. But thanks y'all for joining, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Yep, have a good one.